These are the darkest tragedies of the 21st century. Everyone believes Formula One is safer than ever, but why did some never come home? This wasn't an exception, it was a pattern.
I'm just wondering whether it's the stretcher that I see.
Monza 2000, Ferrari's home race. And Ferrari were actually winning the championship in front of a home crowd. Schumacher is leading up to the... When the race began, Schumacher led, with Häkkinen right behind. The championship was on the line, but within seconds, everything turned upside down.
Retirement, and wow! That's the two Jordans and a that's Trulli and
and there's many cars piling in at the back. Terrible accident there.
It looked serious, like someone must have been injured. But when the smoke cleared, all the drivers seemed fine. Then something didn't add up.
If it's anybody, it's going to be De La Rosa. I'm just wondering whether it's the stretcher that I see with the red markings or whether it's a marshal.
Even the legendary Murray Walker sounded lost. But the truth soon came out. It was a marshal. Poor Gilles Bianchi. How could that be? If you look closely, Jordan's Heinz Harald Franzen collided with his teammate Jarno Trulli. The impact sent a wheel flying, spinning at over 140 kilometers an hour. It struck the marshal. At that moment, Paolo was walking with a fire extinguisher in hand when it came out of nowhere.
Is that a marshal?
Well, I was wondering if it was a marshal earlier on because it looks as though he's in the orange overalls.
Medics gave Paolo first aid and rushed him to the hospital, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. The 33-year-old had passed away. The cause of death was severe head trauma from the wheel. This hit Schumacher particularly hard, who was dealing with a lot, including his friend suffering a heart attack, and tying his old rival, the legendary Senna, glory. 5 days later, his funeral was held. A Ferrari flag draped over his coffin. His colleagues, friends, and drivers all present to pay their respects. He was a true Ferrari fan, and his loss cut deep. This tragic accident was the catalyst for change. The FIA introduced stronger wheel tethers to prevent wheels from detaching in future crashes. It was a stark reminder of how much marshals risk to keep Formula One alive. But that was just the beginning. What happened next was hard to believe. Just 5 races into the 2001 season, at the Australian Grand Prix, Jacques Villeneuve is hunting for points, full throttle down the straight until...
But Ralph's braking catches out Villeneuve with horrendous consequences.
The entire paddock held its breath in the debris and dust. Both drivers miraculously made it out, but replay showed something very dangerous. That loose wheel shot through a gap in the debris fence, striking volunteer Marshal Graham Beveridge, who was standing behind it. The wheel hit him with catastrophic force, estimated at speeds between 145 to 175 kilometers an hour. The blow was directly to the heart, which proved to be incompatible with life. But hopefully that is a good sign as we see the ambulance drive away now. One detail deserves a moment, and we'll come back to it. Despite the horrific impact, Beveridge received first aid on the track. But at Melbourne Hospital, doctors could do nothing. The 52-year-old firefighter and father of 3 had been at his first ever F1 event. It was a sad echo of the past. On the 6th lap, VNV's Ferrari suffered brake fade. He ran into the right rear tyre of Ronnie Peterson. A marshal had already lost his life in a crash tied to the Villeneuve surname. Worse still, it followed Paolo Gisbert's tragedy by less than 6 months. How could this happen again? The truth turned out to be much more tragic. Medics weren't providing first aid to save a life. They were doing just enough to justify keeping the race alive. For that, they were later prosecuted. And that was only the surface. Back in 1998, experts had already warned that debris could breach barriers on fast circuits like Melbourne, but nothing was done. Marshal Graham Beveridge was standing in an area that should have not been accessible at all. The fence was too low, and the access openings were too wide. Therefore, this incident could have been avoided. But the deeper they looked, the worse it got. The Australian Grand Prix Corporation was aware of these risks. Yes, they had complied with FIA safety standards, but only at the bare minimum. After the incident, Formula One shifted the blame to the local organisers. The organisers said, "We met all the requirements." And in the end, no one was held accountable. I wanted to dig deeper. What did the local press report? What was in those internal documents? But some websites were blocked. So I fired up private internet access, switched to a server in Australia, and saw exactly what the locals see. Hold on, this isn't your typical ad. I reached out to them because I've been using it for a while. If you're an F1 fan, you get it. When F1 TV or Sky doesn't work in your region, it's brutal. But a VPN, it's like a digital pit limiter. One click and everything's unlocked. Sky, Netflix, geo-blocked sites. Best part? One account covers all your devices and every bit of traffic is encrypted. Want full access? Support the channel using the link below or scan the QR code. By the next year, the changes were impossible to miss. Taller fences, narrower gaps, and real protection for the people standing trackside. July 19, 2009. It was just another Formula 2 race, but from the very first seconds, chaos took hold at Brands Hatch. Moments later, the unthinkable happened. Jack Clark, well, his car and the wheel took right across the most car. Jack Clark slammed into the fence. His rear right wheel broke off.
That's Jack Clark. Well, his car on the wheel took right across the most Henry Surtees car.
Flying at over 140 kilometers per hour and struck Henry Surtees directly in the helmet. He was knocked unconscious instantly, but the worst was still ahead, and that's the very last accident. And worry immediately. By the time the marshals reached him, it was already too late. Henry Surtees passed away on July 19. He wasn't just a rising talent, he was the son of John Surtees, the only man in history to win world titles in both Formula One and MotoGP. Losing his son opened his eyes to a brutal truth. Drivers' heads were still exposed. In the wake of the tragedy, the Henry Surtees Foundation was born, not just a tribute, but a mission to prevent other families from suffering the same loss. That loss became a turning point. By 2011, Formula One had doubled the wheel fasteners, hoping to stop wheels from breaking loose. But it was already the third such accident, and each one had come with a price they could no longer justify. Also, behind closed doors, something even bigger had begun. A search for a way to protect the one place still exposed, the driver's head. And just as that vision was starting to take shape, the sport was about to face another nightmare. In 2012, Formula One was close to making history, because the new driver was...
Hello, I'm Maria de Villota, the Marasha Formula One test driver, and my racing career started in Madrid, where I was born, in a go-kart track.
It was a woman, Maria de Villota, who caused a stir throughout the paddock. Although she was already part of the team, she had not yet had any official tests. Her first chance came on July 3rd during a session in England, and then everything turned into a nightmare.
But just at the moment that she was slowing down to, 15, 20 miles an hour, suddenly there was an acceleration and the car shot forward.
Her helmet took the full impact and shattered her skull. When she arrived at the hospital,
"Are you a surgeon?" And he said yes. So I asked him, "Do you need both of your hands for surgery?" And he said yes. I told him, "Well, I'm a Formula One driver and I need both my eyes."
Unfortunately, as you can imagine, he was unable to do so, and she lost her right eye. And with it, her dream of Formula One. But she didn't walk away from the sport. On the contrary, she realized something more.
Now I realize I can see better than ever. Before I only saw Formula One. I could only see myself competing inside a car, and I didn't see what's really important in life, which is being able to say, "Wow, I'm alive."
She devoted herself to safety. She spoke at press conferences, supported road safety campaigns, and fought for awareness of traumatic brain injuries. But even that wasn't enough. During one of the press conferences, the unexpected happened.
Racing driver Maria de Villota has been found dead in a hotel room in Spain.
In October 2013, Maria died. The cause was a seizure, directly related to the brain damage she sustained in the accident. A delayed effect of a moment that should have never happened. The entire Formula One community honoured her memory, a star on every helmet, a symbol of a struggle that was not in vain. 2013 Canadian Grand Prix. In the final laps of a race, a Sauber spun out and hit the wall, just another routine crash in Formula One. Yellow flags were waved and a crane moved in to recover the car. The car was cleared and the race resumed like nothing happened. Then suddenly, something was wrong. The paramedics rushed in, the camera cut away, and a marshal was on the floor. As the crane lifted the car, Mark Robinson, a 38-year-old volunteer marshal, was underneath, steadying it by hand. He was doing exactly what he was trained to do, making sure the rear end didn't swing or slip. But before anyone could react, the crane crushed him. The very piece of machinery that was supposed to protect was now the instrument of tragedy. Mark Robinson was airlifted to a hospital, but the injuries were too severe.
Canadian Grand Prix at Montreal was marred by tragedy when a marshal was killed after the race ended. The man was hit by a crane which was removing a car from the track. He died later in hospital.
The motorsport community was in shock. A dedicated volunteer marshal who had been on the front lines since 2003 had lost his life. An investigation followed, revealing a series of failures. The crane had moved too quickly, nearly 11 kilometers per hour, while lifting the car almost 2 meters off the ground. The marshals were placed directly under the suspended vehicle, completely against safety protocols. There was no proper training for these kinds of recovery operations. Quebec's Health and Safety Authority launched a thorough inquiry, and the findings were damning. And as a result, the FIA took immediate action. Mobile cranes were banned from operating during live events, and new safety protocols were put in place for recovery operations. Mark Robinson's tragic death was the first fatality of a marshal since 2001. His passing led to immediate safety reforms, ensuring that no other marshal would have to face such a risk again. But just another year later, another Sauber crash and another crane would spell disaster. Japan, 2014. By lap 9, the green flag waved again. Everybody switched to intermediates, but with spray and darkness.
Oh dear, and now we might get a safety car. Ayrton Senna has gone off into the barrier.
By lap 42, the kind of crash that usually brings out a yellow flag and a sigh of relief. But something else had gone wrong.
Oh my God! You wonder what's happened.
Yeah, something's not good up there.
Just one lap later, Jules Bianchi arrived at the same corner. He lost control. It disappeared under the crane. Trackside marshals ran toward the wreckage. For a moment, the broadcast cut away. Nobody knew what had just happened. The medical helicopter was taking off, and we didn't know at the time that he wasn't on the medical helicopter, and we thought he was. The weather was too bad to fly. Instead, Jules was transported by ambulance, unconscious and losing precious time, all the way to Mia Prefectural Hospital.
As Bianchi remains in critical but stable condition, his family has confirmed that the brain injury he suffered is a diffuse axonal injury.
And then the long, quiet wait began. For months, the world waited, hoping for a miracle. But eventually, Jules Bianchi has died of injuries suffered during last year's Japanese Grand Prix. At the funeral, everyone showed up for support. They didn't lose a fellow driver, but a dear friend. How could this have happened? Whose fault was it? Why was the equipment there during the race? This lesson should have been learned after the incident in 2013. So the crash changed the trajectory of F1. The FIA made sweeping changes at Suzuka, introduced VSC, and most importantly, the halo. Just before his death, Jules Bianchi convinced Ferrari to sign a young driver he deeply believed in. His name was Charles Leclerc. 5 years later, at Spa, he put a Ferrari on pole and had a real shot at his first win. But that day, the spotlight wasn't his alone. His childhood friend was racing in Formula 2. The lights went out and something went wrong.
No, it's a different... You would normally... Oh, wow.
Oh, that's a horrible accident.
Jeez, I hope that kid's good. Okay. Wow.
Something terrible had happened. Giuliano Alesi lost control through Eau Rouge. He spun, smashed into a barrier, and bounced back onto the track. Debris scattered everywhere. Oh, there's a big crash there. There's a car who lost it. Oh, that's a horrible accident. Huber was taken to a medical center, but his injuries were beyond saving. Antoine was just 22, a young driver who had grown up side by side with Charles Leclerc and Pierre Gasly, chasing the same dream. The motorsport world stood still. And then something happened that broke everyone's hearts. The very next day, Leclerc drove like a man possessed, and for the first time ever, Charles Leclerc wins a Formula 1 Grand Prix. F1, yeah. Better wheel tethers, less debris spread, but most importantly, the track itself went through major renovations to prevent further loss of life. The real question still hangs in the air. Has motorsport truly learned? It was July 1st, 2023. Formula Regional European Championship. Visibility was near zero and the track had turned into a trap.
Relax, we will have one more lap, but that gap has grown. And look at Dirksen, Flusha. It's not a teammate battle this time. EP, as they made their way over the crest. Oh no! Oh, it's Tim Tramnitz! Tramnitz off!
Delano van 't Hoff, a 19-year-old Dutch talent, lost grip on the Kemmel Straight. The race was immediately stopped. But for Delano, the damage was too much. He sustained fatal injuries, his young life taken in an instant. As he lost control, his car skidded uncontrollably, smashing into the barriers. Adam Fitzgerald's car collided with Delano's broadside. The 19-year-old, who had already proven his mettle by winning the Spanish F4 Championship in 2021, was gone. In the wake of the tragedy, a moment of silence at the Australian Grand Prix.
I'll pause for a minute's silence to remember the young driver Delano van 't Hoff, who sadly lost his life while racing at Spa-Francorchamps yesterday.
Max Verstappen, the reigning world champion, called the crash sad and unnecessary, echoing the sentiments of the entire motorsport community. Lance Stroll demanded urgent changes to the track.
We've been saying it for years. We've lost 2 kids now in, like a span of 5 years. The corner needs to be changed, and we're going to be there in a few weeks, so seriously need to think about that.
And these were the darkest moments of the modern era, with the worst of all time. Click on the video.